What's going on, everybody? Let's make some coffee.
There is a story so strange in its implications that it defies ordinary classification.
Black Earth and black times infinity.
Alright, so with this video I decided to do a video on making coffee. So yeah, I know that sounds kind of weird, making coffee, but I used to not be a coffee guy. I hated coffee, thought it tasted like garbage until I found out that Starbucks coffee was pretty much garbage. So that was mostly what I was drinking. I never liked it. So I found some other kind of coffee types that I liked. In particular, Caveman Coffee Company, which is a company that I love using. They deliver coffee. I mainly use their coffee for hot coffee, and then I use another brand for cold brew coffee, which I'll get into in a minute here. So the reason why I'm actually doing this video for coffee first is because I want to do a series on the ketogenic diet, and for me the first part of going keto has to do with coffee because it's the easiest way for me to introduce fat into my diet in the morning, because I use a product that's called MCT oil, which is medium chain triglyceride oil, and it's derived from coconuts, and it's basically just pure fat that you can put in coffee, and it mixes in really well. And there's a few different brands that I like to use for MCT oil. So without further ado, let's go see how I make coffee. So first step I do, obviously, is I get all my stuff out of my pantry, which you'll see right here. I have an Aeropress that I like to use for hot coffee. Aeropress is awesome if you just want to make a little bit of coffee for yourself. It's basically a single serve type deal, and I'll show you how to use that in this video. So also I have in there a little coffee vac thing you'll see in the upper left hand corner or whatever. That's really cool for preserving your coffee after you've ground it. So ideally, if you're going to make coffee, you're going to want to grind your coffee beans and then use the grounds immediately. But obviously it's not always possible, especially when you have kids or people sleeping in the house. You don't want to have a loud ass grinder in your house going off. So I'll do it like the night before, and then I'll use that coffee vac to make sure it's a vacuum sealed container, and then I use the coffee later. So also you'll see in there the MCT oil. I'm using one called Sports Research MCT oil, and you can find that on Amazon. I used to use stuff from Onnit. Onnit's a great brand. They make a lot of really good stuff, but their MCT oil is more expensive than this. So, and for me it's basically the same. They both don't have palm oil, which is pretty important. So make sure you find one that says they do not have palm oil, or at least have it say 100% organic coconuts. So if you see one of those two things on there, you know that you're getting 100% of what you're looking for. So just a little tip from me. So I'll put a link down below with where you can find the Sports Research MCT oil. Type of beans that I'm using is it's Eon Coffee, and that's a local coffee place to me. I used to live right around the corner from them. They're in Hayward, California. I got these coffee beans because they had a really good cold brew there, and I really love cold brew. But I left some today for my girlfriend K-Mac so she can drink the rest. So I had to make hot coffee today. Normally I like to use hot coffee with Caveman coffee, but today I didn't have any ground, so I'm using Eon Coffee's house blend. Is called Tres Amigos. It's 3 different kinds of beans. So I know some people don't like coffee blends or whatever, but this one's pretty good. I like it anyway. So yeah, without any further ado, we'll start with heating up the water first. I just have a little small pot that I heat water up in. I just leave it on the stove usually, and then I'll start assembling together. First I'll put everything together so we can get everything ready for me to start making my coffee. So, and the last step in all this is getting my coffee cup. So I use a Contigo coffee cup. They're nice because it's an auto seal. You have to press a button to open it, and then once you let it go, it stays closed. So you can literally throw this thing and it won't spill, which is great if you're clumsy or if you want to shake up coffee like I do, which I'll show in the end. First thing I do is I put the Aeropress on top of this cup. And then, first thing I'll do is I'll put in the MCT oil into my coffee cup. It's important not to use too much MCT oil. I know it probably looks like I use kind of a lot there. I use about probably 2 to 3 tablespoons. But if you start using a lot, I gotta warn you, you might shit yourself. And I'm not even exaggerating, because if you have too much MCT oil, everything must go to your stomach. So if you have too much, be near a toilet, please. So start off with like a little bit at a time. It beyond just having introducing fats into my diet easier, it actually makes the coffee a little bit smoother, which is nice. And if you want something a little bit more fancy than just normal odorless, tasteless MCT oil, you can use what's called emulsified MCT oil, which I also use. That product comes from Onnit. I don't know of another product other than Onnit that makes emulsified MCT, and it's a great product. Basically, what they do is they make it like a cream, and they have different types of flavors, and they're all unsweetened, so it's pretty nice. I have one of my favorites is the just the normal coconut one. Tastes pretty good, and then they have another one called vanilla that tastes pretty good to me. My sister tried it one time and she hated it, so I guess fair warning. But I like them, so it's a good way to introduce something a little sweet that doesn't have any actual sweetener in it in your coffee, and to make it smoother. So if you're missing your cream and you're on like a diet, if you're missing your cream and your sugars, then I think emulsified MCT oil is the way to go. It is kind of expensive, but it's worth it. And another thing that's cool about emulsified MCT oil is that it blends together in cold coffee. So keep that in mind. So yeah, that being said, I will put MCT oil in first, then I'll assemble the Aeropress onto the top of my coffee cup, and then I'll put after my water comes to a boil, I'll then add the water into my Aeropress. If you notice, there's lines on the side of the Aeropress that tells you, like, I think it's like how many cups or something like that. I can't remember. I usually just fill it up to the top. I'll wait a couple of seconds, then I use a stir for about 10 to 20 seconds, and then I'll take the plunger and then I'll put it actually in some of the water that's left over that I boiled. That way the plunger is lubricated and it's a little warm, so it's a little more pliable. If you do it when it's dry and try to plunge it down, it's kind of hard. That's why you have to put some water on it, just to make it easier. So then I'll just plunge it down slowly, and yeah, that's about it. Plunge it down slowly, and then I'll take everything off of my take the Aeropress off my coffee cup. Then I'll put the top of the coffee cup on, seal it, and then I'll shake it up just to make sure that the MCT oil is blended together with the coffee. So yeah, that's it. That's how I make coffee. I'll probably show you guys how I do cold brew in another video, because I have like a whole cold brew contraption thing. It's a big tower looking thing. It looks like I'm cooking up meth or crack or something like that, but it's actually just to make coffee. So yeah, I hope you like this video, and hopefully pretty soon I'll do some other videos on how I do keto, because I got down to 175 last year, and I stayed pretty steady for a while, and then after we adopted our youngest daughter, I kind of went off keto for a little while, and now I'm approaching 190. So I'm like, oh, it's a little too heavy, but it's still I'm nowhere near. I'm not over 200 pounds like I used to be. So I'm gonna hop back on keto, see if I can get back down to the 170s, and then go from there. So yeah, this is Kr0nus on coffee. I'm out of here. Peace.